morning. Welcome to the Pitch Line Chronicles. I'm Uncle Tats. I'm here with Rob and Donald. And when I just made the comment to Rob a moment ago that it wasn't. That's actually a really positive 4-game set against Houston, being able to split that series without Cole as one of our starters. In a series where we were like, all right, this is just going to keep burying us, even further. I really think the split in the series really can be a positive for this team going forward, especially yesterday. I mean, Houston tried every which way to give that game away to lose the series, but just the Yankees, they just don't have the bats for that big, rally hit. I think that's where we miss players like Rizzo, not having full-fledged Stanton, and he almost walked it off, but he was also I think he was 0 for 6 yesterday. One big at bat from Stanton can turn that game around yesterday. They walked the whole. I think everybody had a walk. But when you look at it overall, I actually I don't feel like it was a downer. I actually think there was a lot of positives you could take away from the series as far as the bullpen looking like more like the bullpen should be, and the patience at the plate. I think they put together a pretty decent series together. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of like on the opposite side of that.
Okay.
There was a couple of times where you can, the 2 wins were nice, right? But yesterday, I don't think anything looked good. We got a couple of runs via walks. That was nice. But like you said, we lacked the big hit. Rodon stunk. He's hurt again. He says he feels fine, but we know not to take anybody for their word in this organization because so we don't know if that could be a 2-day thing or a 2-month thing. Wandy Peralta was left in to face like 8 righties for some strange reason, and he stunk. Middleton looked fine, but the bullpen yesterday, at least yesterday, which a game that I felt like we should have won because this was a game for Rodon to really like put himself into that limelight for the Yankee fans. He could have had himself a classic Rodon type of game that he had the last 2 years against a really good team. Would have had the fans feeling good. And then Bader's comments after the game would have made more sense. But splitting this series and the way they lost yesterday, it's like we finally scored 7 runs, but the pitching was atrocious. And a guy that we're paying a lot of money to, and we're past the point of saying he's working his way back. Oh, it's still like his spring training. It's not that point anymore. And for him to give up 5 runs in like less than 3 innings or whatever it was, that's not a good sign. And if he's hurt again, year 1 has been an absolute disaster. And it's just another player that we've brought in like another free agent signing or traded player that we brought in that's been hurt more than he's played for us. And I can't stand that. And I don't want Rodon to fall into that category of the Carl Pavanos of the world, because I'm seeing that get thrown around right now. They're calling him Carlos Pavano. And I think that year 2 will be a lot better for him, but I can't come out of that game yesterday and be like, oh, at least we split. We're still 4.5 out, and this team continues to think that we're going to be fine after this. And we've actually came out of the series, I think, further back than we did going into the series. So we lost ground despite playing better. I don't know how you can be like, oh, at least we split. It's not a good look.
Maybe I'm just trying to think of it in a positive way to start the week off. I try to do that. But Donald, what's your thought?
I'm with Rob on that. That loss yesterday kind of summed up what the Yankees' problems are. First of all, we left a small village on the base paths yesterday. I know we scored 7 runs, but I mean, literally, they handed us the game and we couldn't take it. Numerous walks, millions of walks, and we couldn't get a hit apart from Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres stepped up. Bader was pretty good. That was your offense. So I really didn't see much positive in the offense right there. As for the pitching, Wandy Peralta was left in too long. When Aaron Boone originally put him in, he did fine getting the first two outs that he was required to get in the end of the inning. But then he was asked to go that extra inning, and Wandy Peralta's exhausted. And he showed it. That extra inning that Boone put him in destroyed him, destroyed the Yankees. That destroyed the game, ended the game. That's a terrible mistake from Aaron Boone. He should know his players by now better than that. And as you say, as Rob pointed out, he was just facing all these righties, and they were just bombing him. So I thought that was a terrible mistake from Aaron Boone. So you're looking at Wandy Peralta struggling because he's exhausted, overused. Aaron Boone making a pitching mistake, which we know is pretty much par for the course for Aaron Boone. And then we have an offense which was, again, persona non grata, absolutely non-existent. Stanton could have won the game in the ninth inning. He was very, very close, just off the edge of the bat. If he squared up to that, it's gone. Or if he pulled it, it's gone. It's just very unfortunately hit it to straightaway center field. But end of the day, this offense is dreadful. I'm calling it what it is. This offense is dreadful. Now, sharing the series with Houston, if I was asked, like, say at the start of the year, would you take a share of a series with Houston over 4 games? Of course you would, right? Because of our record against the Astros is terrible. But we're in a position where we're on the outside looking in. We're 4.5 games out. We're actually farther out, as Rob pointed out, than we were to start the series. So, like, we're in bad shape. So I'm not quite sure what's to be positive about right now. I just think that, okay, we didn't lose the series. If we lost the series, we'd be completely ruined, as opposed to most likely ruined. So, I mean, it's like the playoffs look so far off right now.
But the way this team looked, I figured, 3 out of 4, it was a possibility. A sweep would not have been shocking. So to take 2, to split the games 2-2, I'm grasping for something to feel positive about going into the later end of, the later parts of the season, and just the patience at the plate. I just thought that was something that I could really hold on to say there may be something just a little bit different about this team against a team that has just owned the shit out of us. Houston usually comes in and just runs right through us. Like, we are, a single A team. So I think the split is not the worst thing in the world. But, obviously that's my opinion. I respect your guys' opinion. I don't think you're wrong. I want something to hold on to keep wanting to stay invested in this club.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, Tats. But I mean, you're looking at Rodon, who is technically meant to be our number 2 pitcher. He's 1-4 with a 7.33 ERA.
We're going to get into Rodon. Don't think he's getting off the hook.
And 6 starts after have his forearm, back injuries, and now a hamstring injury. So it's quite clear that he's not fully healthy. So if you're looking for things to be positive about, but our number 2 pitcher is 1-4 with a 7.33 ERA and 6 starts. And then we've got an exhausted bullpen, which was only marginally touched on with acquiring the dude from the White Sox, Middleton. That's not really going to solve anything. So, like, we're not really we've not taken a step forward at all. And obviously with the trade deadline disaster which happened, we don't have a left fielder. So, again, I'm not quite sure. Aaron Judge is obviously still struggling since coming back. He's working back. He's not 100% healthy. We know that. I'm really not sure what the Yankees are doing right now. Like if they were smart, and if Hal Steinbrenner allowed Brian Cashman to do it, which from what I hear he didn't, they should have been sellers, and they should have Aaron Judge just rehab this thing and call it a day for the season, because this season looks pretty shot in my opinion.
Yeah.
It just looks shot. You're 4.5 games out. Are we gonna climb above Toronto? Are we gonna climb above Houston? No. So
No.
I don't see it. Unless anybody else can see it, I'm not sure.
We still got to climb above Seattle too, and we got to get past them. And yeah, but going back to Tats's point, like you can take a couple of positives, right? Nestor Cortez looked fantastic in his 4 innings. It's good to see him back, and his fastball was up. He touched 96, I think, so that's a good sign. But other than that, like you see more of the same. Like we drew a lot of walks, but that was only in yesterday's game. We didn't really do that earlier on. We weren't taking a bunch of walks, and even yesterday, yeah, we had 12 walks, but only, like Donald mentioned, only 3 players had the hits. It was LeMahieu, Bader, and Torres. Nobody else came up with that big hit. It's good to get the merry-go-round of walks, but you need to be able to put one in the gap or down the line to get a couple of runs across. We would have won that game had we been able to do that. But then you look at the game with Severino. Once again, he gets lit up. And it's just like, how long are we to continue to let this happen where they keep throwing him out there and they keep saying the same thing over and over? Oh, he's trying this. He's trying this. Oh, we thought we saw a couple of good things. Like, he's putting us out of the game before it even starts. And if you've noticed now, 2 games in a row, Severino started, Aaron Judge has sat. The Yankees are waving the white flag before the first pitch. They're saying we're not winning this game. They know they're not winning with Severino pitching, so they're not going to play Aaron Judge. I would be willing to bet that if Severino starts again in this series against Chicago, they'll probably sit Aaron Judge because they feel like even against the White Sox, Severino might get lit up for 5 or 6 runs. And we were kind of joking around the other day, Tats, like, well, if Sevy gives up 3 runs in the first inning, we might have a chance to win. Would he give up like 5 in the second or whatever it was? So he was like in the middle of his 7 or the 3 that we gave him. Like we gave him a 3-run inning. Like, okay, we might be able to win. And he ends up giving up like 5 or 6 or whatever it was. And it's just terrible. But this series, you saw some good, but you saw the usual bad that has been keeping this team down all season long. The offense can't get the big hit. The pitching is very suspect, at least outside of Garrett Cole. And the bullpen is exhausted. It's absolutely exhausted. And our manager still, in his 5th, 6th year, whatever he's in now, cannot manage a bullpen. He claims to know his players very well, yet he uses Wandy poorly. He uses Wandy completely wrong. Get those first 2 outs and then go to Middleton. I don't know what – you could have won that game. You could have won that game. You could put that loss on Aaron Boone. You really could. Even in the game where the offense had 3 players getting hits, the pitching stunk, and we were able to climb back. It was 5-2, then it was 5-5, and then he let Wandy face righties, and they lit him up. So, and then we still almost came back. So, I don't know. I know what you're saying, and I can try to be a little positive. It's like, hey, there were some good things, but the same crap that we've been complaining about all season long and going back to the second half of last year is still showing its ugly head, and the organization's done nothing to try to correct that. And still, instead, they have people like Bader coming out and saying, if we keep playing this brand of baseball, everything's going to be fine. And I don't know how you can say that when you've fallen 4.5 back. It's like they're just assuming they're going to go on this winning streak. The Royals have a bigger winning streak than we do this season. They haven't had that winning streak. They need to get that 7-8 game winning streak if they feel like they're going to climb back in this thing. And even then, you don't know how Seattle's going to do in that time frame. It's not like we're a game and a half back. Mm-hmm. We're 4.5 out. They have to have a big run and hope that 2 or 3 teams struggle in that span. It's not happening. Toronto just swept. I think they sweep Boston or something like that. So I don't know how this team is feeling so confident when we've actually put ourselves further back in the standings.
Yeah,
sorry, Tats. That goes to show what the locker room message is from Aaron Boone. Oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I think that reverberates right through the organization, where they still think that everything's fine when it's the opposite. There's a lack of urgency in the organization. Tats.
Well, the way I looked at Bader's comments, and where I agree with him to a degree, is yesterday was the first game that I can remember where the outs were not easy. You had to actually battle to beat the Yankees yesterday. You know, even though they were trying to hand the Yankees the game, the Yankees were still, they're still trying to find where they are, and what they are at this point because, the trade deadline is over, so there's no reinforcements coming in. They don't want to use any of their prospects, so there's no help coming up. So this is the roster that we're gonna have to, I guess, rely on for lack of term. When you're able to just have the amount of base runners that they've had, they weren't swinging there was very few first pitch swinging. They really were trying to just change the outlook, make it harder for the pitcher. And I think that specifically with yesterday's game, I think that they accomplished that, and it's something that they can build on. Going, okay, if we stick to this, we actually can get a few more wins than people expect us to. That's the way I look at it. But comments, they say, they got to say something in the dugout, in the locker room. They're not, they're going to, just like I'm trying to do, they're trying to at least give something positive for the fans to hold on to. And the positive that we can hold on to, and Donald, we're gearing up for a little roll call because one thing that is not quiet right now is the chat. And you guys are just fucking amazing. So, Donald, it's time for a roll call.
All right, let's get the roll call moving here. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to NFE, up nice and early with us. Jonathan, shout out. Maza, shout out. Sunil, my guy, shout out. Dev Finch, what is up, Dev Finch? Anthony Garcia, shout out Anthony Garcia. Juancico, my guy, good to see you too. And we have had so many people in the chat. Li Yankee King, salute. Will Star, salute. Everybody who hasn't already hit the like button, please do so. Hit that like button right now. Dev Finch, good to see you too. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. But yeah, thanks to everybody joining us this morning.
Well, let's get to now. Let's get to where and what's going on, Garcia. I see you sneaking in there, but let's get to the realism of the whole situation with the Yankees right now. All right, enough of the rose-colored glasses. I'm trying, but the reality is, let's talk about the starting rotation and the shit show.
Well, before you do that, Tats, I do actually agree with one thing.
Okay.
One thing that I think we can be positive about. I do think that Sean Casey is definitely his message is coming across. Right now, there's going to be games where you're not going to see the benefits, but in general, things have been moving in the right direction. It just goes to show what an absolute, utter catastrophe Dylan Lawson and the Yankee front office philosophy for offense was, because it was a pool-happy organization, uppercut swings, and it was disastrous. Dylan Lawson treated every game like it was a mathematics equation. Like he wasn't watching what was happening. Like there was no, you could tell there was no film review because, like we already saw from Anthony Volpe, that there was a massive hole in the swing and it wasn't even looked at, right? So Dylan Lawson was a complete catastrophe, utter catastrophe. He didn't know what he was doing. Awful job from Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman is a complete and utter disgrace for having this guy as our hitting coach. Sean Casey's come in and things are looking better. In particular, Gleyber Torres looks better. Gleyber Torres looks like the kind of hitter that he was a couple of years ago, where he's hitting to all fields. So if you're looking for a positive, I would say Gleyber Torres. Torres looks like he's possibly an extension candidate because of Sean Casey, because Sean Casey has got him back to being the hitter that he should have been with the Yankees until Brian Cashman got his terrible mitts involved and tried to kill Gleyber Torres. Sorry, Brian Cashman, if you're watching, you ain't getting a break from me, buddy. So I do think that Casey's come in and done a decent job. But this offense is still shot because there's no left fielder. There's not really an offensive catcher. Well, there isn't an offensive catcher, I should say. And there's still a ton of positions that we just don't have any power. But in general, the offense looks better. The approach is better. There's not as many uppercut swings. It's down because I was reading a Joel Sherman interview. A report, and Joel Sherman did point out that like the amount of pulling that was going on has actually gone down since Sean Casey's come involved. So there's not as many uppercut swings and attempts to pull the ball. It's gone down a percentage since Sean Casey's come involved. So if you're looking for a positive, that's my one positive.
Rob?
Yeah, Glaber's been really good. Glaber's, I'm looking at his like splits over the last 30 games. He's hitting 325, on base 364, and his slugging is a 542. So that's over a month. So he's been really good. That's probably why they had such a high value on him at the deadline, why they asked for so much. Maybe they are planning to extend him now. I don't know, because the fact that they've tried to trade him now like 3 separate times over the last year tells you they might not want to, but plans do change. We know what Hal said before the season, the Volpe and Peraza in the infield is the future, but maybe they're saying, look, Gleyber Torres, as streaky as he might be, we can only hope Peraza turns into this kind of hitter at the major league level. Now, I still think it's absolutely criminal what they've done to Peraza because they haven't given him a shot and being a top prospect and all, but maybe they're saying Peraza might be in the future plans at third and they want to keep Gleyber around. Let's not forget, it's not like he's 32 or anything. He's 26, I think, going into age 26. So maybe they do decide to extend him, but also what this tells you is the Yankees screwed him, and it was something that we've been saying all along, because you're seeing now with a very often a hitting coach, an actual hitting coach, the one player that has absolutely him and DJ. I put DJ in that category as well because DJ's looking a lot like his old self because he's going to the opposite field again. But Gleyber Torres is no longer just pulling and pulling and pulling. His home run yesterday, opposite field. Take advantage of that porch, even from the right side of the plate. So the one player that has really benefited from Sean Casey has been Gleyber Torres, and that might change the Yankees' opinion because 2 months ago they might have been like, well, we're going to try to get what we can out of him, trade him either at the deadline or next season. But now they could re-sign him for let's say 5 or 6 years. He might not cost you too much, not like the money that Simeon got or Seager got, but you might get him for a pretty good deal. And it wouldn't be that bad of a thing. I mean, again, I don't ever want to trade. Never said I wanted to trade him, but if there was a time to do it, it'd be now when he was having a good year. But maybe their plans have changed and said Gleyber's doing just fine in the position he's in. His defense has been a little bit off this year, but hasn't been detrimental to the team. And his offense has been, I mean, let's be honest, he's been the best hitter on the team this year. He's played more games. He's played more games than Judge. Yeah, there's nobody better than him. He's been better than everybody else in this lineup. So maybe that's earned him an extension. You do have one more year on his contract. So we'll see. If he keeps this up from now until the end of the year, I don't think you have a choice because it'd be tough to move on from him and be like, we're gonna go for it next year and trade your best hitter, which has been Gleyber Torres. So we'll see. But I am very, very happy to see the results of him looking like the guy he was in 2018 and 2019 before they turned him into a pull-hitting shortstop.
Yeah, I want to go back to this comment up here from Sunil. Brought up a good, if I can find it. But I think the biggest problem has got to be it continues to be the way they handle the pitching staff or lack thereof. So it's a situation where, actually, before we get going any further, all right, let's all wish D-Rod a happy birthday. Our dude turned 50, and yeah, he's recovering from the weekend, like he said. But happy birthday, D-Rod. Enjoy always having you around. And it's the one thing I do agree with you guys on where I was trying to be positive. It really was the situation with Peralta. I think that, you even saw it on his face even before he came into the game. He's like, "Oh, you calling on me now?" You know, he's like, "Dude, I'm tired." He just didn't have that facial expression like he had his game face on. So to stretch him for an extra inning, I thought was very negligent. You know, it's the use of this bullpen is atrocious. You know, you can't wait. You know, even when they're pitching effectively, as soon as they get 2 outs, Boone's running out there to get the next guy in instead of letting him finish an inning. You know, and I don't know if he's explained where he's trying to keep the pitches down. He's trying not to, if that's his method to not overwork these guys. But if they have 2 outs on 5 pitches, you don't need to take that pitcher out. You know, he's just so quick on the hook. I think that's what's really setting the bullpen backwards. Donald, do you agree?
Well, obviously there's a 3 batter minimum, but I do agree that the once he gets to a certain point, like he's too obsessed with matchups that he doesn't follow that. You know, maybe if I just get this guy to get that extra out, close out that inning, and then we start afresh the next inning. Somebody that better with another arm. I think all this has a knock-on effect. I think the way that he's managed this bullpen thus far has been negligent. I think that he's overused a lot of guys. I think that Garrett Cole is someone that you could always stretch that extra inning. I think you could easily get him to consistently go 7-8 innings, and that would have saved some innings for our key arms or for our key guys, our key horses. Now, we can't really account for the fact that Marinaccio's fallen off the cliff. Wandy Peralta's, listen, we were architects of our own downfall with Wandy Peralta, but Marinaccio we can't help. He just fell off the cliff and struggled. And we got Efros that got hurt. A bunch of guys got hurt, but Brian Cashman didn't touch the bullpen. So maybe if he actually acquired some decent arms in the bullpen, then maybe we'd be in better shape. But we'll see what Middleton gives you. But I mean,
I'm not feeling so optimistic.
He's a middle reliever. I'm not quite sure what else you can expect. So, listen, we're the architects of our own downfall with the bullpen. There were times where we were too quick with the hook. There were times where Herman was pitching phenomenal games, and then we had to rush out and replace him. And all this has a knock-on effect because now we're in, now we got to the end of July and August now, and our bullpen's completely toast for the large part. So we're the architects of our own downfall. It's been mismanaged from the front office downwards. Aaron Boone as well. It is what it is. Brian Cashman didn't help this situation. We knew in June that this team was going to be basically the bullpen was going to be exhausted by August, July, at minimum, and
we scored in
June. Had all the time in the world to go and look for reinforcements, get another arm in there, help this team out. Didn't do it, and that's what I'm talking about, man. And even if you want to touch on left field, he had all season long to make a deal for a left fielder. Didn't do it. Now we don't have one. So, I mean, at the end of the day, all of our problems is solely at the door of our incompetent general manager, who's somehow managed to go a 4-year deal for this travesty of a roster that he built, which even if I was blind and couldn't see, I would still put together a better roster than Brian Cashman did. And his multiple cronies and 500 people in the front office and 500 people in the analytics staff, and somehow he's put together this roster with $300 million. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how it's possible. Stevie Wonder could build a better roster.
So here's this comment from Sunil. Right. And he asks, if the Yankees still don't make the playoffs, but the offense is righted by the end of the year, do you think the combination of Casey and Boone returns for 2024? Rob, what do you think?
Well, I can bet my house that Aaron Boone will be back next year.
Yeah.
I don't know about Casey because they basically said it's a trial run between now and the end of the year. And if you see a major turnaround from this offense, let's say for the next 2 months, if what Sunil just said happens, the offense starts playing a lot better, but they miss the playoffs because they dug themselves this hole already, he's going to get offers from other teams to be maybe even a manager. They might not. There might be teams out there that say, "Wow, the Yankees were one of the worst offenses, and they turned them around in a couple of months." So they might actually go ahead and give him a job, another team in baseball, like I don't know, maybe Kansas City or Colorado or something might give him a job as a manager. But the Yankees would be wise to keep him around, give him a lot more money just to keep him because if he does do what Sunil said. But there's no doubt in my mind Boone's back next year because I think would he get a 4-year or 3-year with a fourth option? So next year would be year 3. They're not going to fire him after 2. They'll probably give him one more season and maybe it'll be better. But I would hope that what Sunil said is if it does get better, yeah, bring them both back because maybe not. I wouldn't bring Boone back, obviously, but we know he's going to be there. But I would bring Casey back. I would bring him back if the offense does steadily improve from now until the end of the season.
Yeah, if we keep seeing what we're seeing with more patience at the plate, less attempt at launch angle. John Sterling pointed that out on the broadcast yesterday. That he notices they're not swinging to raise the ball; they're just making contact and letting the exit velocity take the ball where it's going to go. And for an old school guy like John Sterling to even mention how the exit velo is becoming more of a factor in a positive way for the Yankees than launch angle, just shows how effective if you're squaring up the ball properly and you have the right, a nice level swing, the impact of the ball off the bat alone is going to create more opportunities for contact to turn into hits, whether it's singles, doubles, triples, home runs, it doesn't matter, with the right guy at the plate. You look at somebody like DJ, you're starting to see, just more contact. He's not trying to force the ball to a certain part of the park. Glaber, I think, is even more of a perfect example, where his swing is leveling off and you're seeing the effect of it. He's not trying to hit the home run. The home run's coming when, with the, whatever English is on the ball with the spin rate, and it's just taking off. So, whether it's top spin, backspin, whatever it is, you're seeing how you don't need all these, analytics. The launch angle, I think, is the stupidest thing that ever came into analytics. It doesn't matter. You could hit the ball, on a 300-foot angle. If they're not squaring it up properly, all it's going to be is a pop up into the infield. So the launch angle is just retarded. I shouldn't say that word. It's stupid, right? It's really
hitting mechanics have rarely changed since the day dot of baseball. It's very simple. You don't need to overthink it. No matter how many mathematicians you have from Harvard working in the analytic front office, it's still very simple. See the ball, hit the ball. Now, it's not easy to do it, but the philosophy is simple. You know what I mean? Get a pitch that you can hit and drive it. Drive it to all fields. Don't overdo it. Don't try and change your swing just to suit what a front office member tells you to do, and it's completely affected a bunch of our guys. But there's great comments from Warren France, WFSN, that I completely agree with here. The worst part is the gaslighting and constantly telling us everything is okay when it's not. Common sense out of the window, always with them. If process is good, no one loses his job, as quoted by Brian Cashman. Well said, Warren. Warren's also got some good points in regards to him hoping that maybe Volpe could see an improvement under Casey. What I want to see with Casey is a change in Volpe and his approach. He needs to get base hits, don't need homers, go the other way. That's all he needs to do. I completely agree with that. I would like to see Volpe get back to where he was when he first started at the start of the year. He wasn't overdoing it until, obviously, the Yankees tried to ruin him, and they've done such a good job of it to this point. But Volpe's a talented guy. He can do this, but he needs to get more contact, and I completely agree. Hopefully that Sean Casey will actually improve with that. But it just goes to show what this front office has done to a bunch of our players. It's shocking, really. Like, they've made players worse rather than better.
Yeah, what you're seeing from Volpe especially is, he's still got to get a better two-strike approach, like Jones says. The uppercut swings, like D-Rod says, that's got to start getting cut down. But you're seeing a much different overall approach at the plate when everybody else is contributing. He's not trying to be the young hero. He could just stick to pretty much, he could go back to what got him here. And I think that with everybody else improving around Casey with his guidance, I think that, over the, we're going to start seeing more of the Volpe at the plate that we expected to happen.
Still swings at the first pitch far too much.
God, it does
far too much. Like he shouldn't be that guy. He should be a top of the order type of hitter. Like he's been better over his last 15 games overall, but it's still not consistent. Yep. Like you've seen the flashes of greatness. Like you're like, wow, this guy can be a 270 hitter, good on base. I don't really care about the OPS for certain players because that's going to factor in power a lot. Like home runs are a big part of your slugging percentage comes from the home runs, but it also factors in the doubles and the triples. But if Volpe is just like a high doubles type of hitter with the stolen bases, that's fine. High average, good on base. If the OPS is 7 something, I really don't care if it's 750 or above. It's below league average, but again, he's not supposed to be a power hitter, but he's already got 14, so he's got the ability to take it over the wall because he has that opposite field approach sometimes, and he can take advantage of that short porch. That goes back to the earlier thing about bringing back Casey. If you give him players that are going to actually work in this ballpark, look what Jake Bauers has done. He is a perfect example of why getting a lefty it makes too much sense in this lineup. Jake Bauers has not had success around the majors, yet this year he's batting leadoff, he's got power, and he's taking advantage of the short porch and right. What a concept. You get a lefty who has a slightest bit of pop. Look at Didi Gregorius's spray chart when he's hitting home runs. They're all to right field. He was the perfect hitter for Yankee Stadium. And it's I don't know how they've gotten away from guys that can pull the ball from the left side of the plate. And again, you get Casey, those kind of guys, you're going to see a much better overall offense because you need the mix. Right now, I think we have, one lefty? If you want to put Rortvedt, they don't play Rortvedt every day, so they really have one left-handed bat that consistently plays. You need more, and you would see a much more balanced offense, and you would probably see more runs per game with Casey's approach because you get more pitches to hit. As a lefty in Yankee Stadium, it's going over the wall more times than not. And, I mean, it's so simple. The fact that they got away from that, it's gee, why did they build the Yankee Stadium the way they did? Because they had a lot of lefties that could hit for power. Jason Giambi loved Yankee Stadium, right? Mark Teixeira loved Yankee Stadium when he batted from the left side. Robinson Cano, Hideki Matsui. We're not going back 40, 50 years here. We're not talking about the Babe Ruths and the Gehrigs of the world. We're talking about guys that were here 10 years ago. This is not a long time that we're talking about, and they got away from that. And I don't know why that they've said, well, if we have righties that can hit the ball the other way. Yeah, but that's Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton type of power. Not everybody has that power. The exit velo matters so much for them because Stanton can flick it and it'll go 115 miles an hour the other way. Judge can do the same thing. DJ LeMahieu's not that hitter. No. Josh Donaldson's not the hitter anymore. Gleyber Torres is even in that hitter. Get some lefties and keep Sean Casey around, and you might see an overall better offense. I'm not saying you have to have 5 or 6 lefties again, but just get 3. Maybe put a switch hitter in there. That's what Dominguez is going to be. If you're talking about the future of the outfield, you got Jones, he's a lefty, maybe Austin Wells, lefty, Dominguez, switch hitter, but that's a couple of years down the line before we see Dominguez and Jones. Get a couple of lefties in there. And I don't know why that they got away from that. And they had lefties available to him in the offseason that could play left field, a position you need and a bat you need, and they passed up on every single one of them.
They passed up on everybody. I mean, you look at, we're seeing such a negative. We knew that it was going to be, a hard-fought battle with the lack of deadline moves, right? You had two pitchers, one's in the minor leagues, and one can't, he can't pitch his way out of a paper bag, with his career 10 ERA. Yeah, that's really going to solve all fucking problems. But the thing that's really starting to piss me off is the rotation. Here we are going, all right, they bring up Brito, who we expected to take Severino's next start. And then Rodon gets hurt, so now you have to use Brito. They send Brito down. Who the fuck is going to be starting pitching? There's no help on the way. I actually was texting yesterday with Spencer. And I'm like, well, they could always trade for, joke around. I'm like, well, could always trade for it. And I'm like, all right, never mind, with a laugh emoji. Because there's no move that they can make right now to fix this rotation. The only guy that they could really bring up that would make me feel comfortable is Vasquez. He better be the call up for one of these starts. Because if not, here's another guy that's going to be yankified, as our Sir Donald likes to say. Did you trademark that yet, by the way?
I need to do so.
Yeah.
I need to do so. But I've got one word to describe. I've got one word to describe how the front office has approached building this offense: arrogance.
Yep,
that's it.
And we've seen that word a few times in the chat today too. Arrogance.
That's what it is. It's just arrogance that they think they don't need lefties. They think they're too smart. They think that they're the smartest people in the room, and it's proven that they're not, because they're arrogant. Their arrogant approach to roster building has them a fourth place team. It's that simple. It's really that simple. It's really hard to screw up what they did and where they were in 2017, and within 5 or 6 years, this thing's completely blown up. It's remarkable when you have $300 million to spend on an annual basis, and you've somehow managed to concoct a roster where you've got half a rotation at best, half a bullpen at best, and a quarter of a batting order at best. Remarkable malfeasance, arrogance, and the Yankees' complete and utter refusal to admit their own mistakes. Complete refusal. Everyone else's fault. Everything else is to blame. They will not look at themselves at all. Even if there was just a tiny bit of ownership, ironically, if there was a tiny little bit of ownership from Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone, this thing would be completely different. Just a tiny bit, just a tad of self-reflection, but they can't do it. They're so self-obsessed and self-obsessed, and that's where they're at. They're arrogant organization, and when you're an arrogant organization, you're going to get overtaken by the Baltimore Orioles of this world, and that's just amazing to me.
No, it's I think where it was a very positive. Warren, you've been also in the chat. Everybody's been Li, Jonathan, D-Rod, Mazza, all yous. The one thing that's really that I was thinking about was how the Yankees gave themselves a pass on being aggressive because of the new playoff layout. I think now that they added that third wildcard team where more teams get in, they thought they could just sit back on their heels and just sleepwalk into the postseason. And even when they saw that was not the case, they still sat idle at the deadline. Now, not only do you have Severino pitching like shit, Rodon injured again. I think the two of them are competing for the worst pitcher in the game. Rob pointed out earlier, Nestor looked phenomenal in his return, but it's only one start. How many times do we see when players come back from an injury, that first start, it's all adrenaline of being back on the mound. It takes 4 or 5 starts to actually see what they're going to be. So we don't even know which Nestor we're getting back. Are we getting back the one before he got hurt, where he was kind of getting lit up a little bit and he wasn't, as nasty as we expect? Or are we getting last year where we thought he was going to be a Cy Young candidate? That's still undetermined. So besides Cole, who would be your number 2 starter right now? If we got to the postseason where you're like, okay, as long as I have this guy behind Cole, we can survive. Who's that guy? I don't see it.
We don't have it. It was supposed to be Rodon.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be him. And a healthy Severino should have been good enough to be your number 3. Well, look at the starting pitchers that we were supposed to have going into the season. One isn't I don't think he exists anymore. Rodon's hurt. Sevy stinks. Nestor's just coming back from an injury. The fill-ins, Clark Schmidt's been fantastic. He's your number 2 right now. And then you look at Domingo Germán, he's suspended for the rest. Well, not suspended, but he's in rehab. So
and Montas is hurt.
Yeah, well, he's the one I mentioned that he doesn't exist anymore because we haven't heard a word about him all season long. He was throwing in LA, and then we haven't heard a word since.
No.
So I think at this point we're not going to even worry about seeing him. But call up Vasquez. They sent Brito down because Loaizaga's coming back, so we know that's going to be the move. But I'm sure they can find a way to get Vasquez here. If you have to IL Rodon again, which again they say he feels fine, that usually means he's going on the IL. It took them 2 months to realize Anthony Rizzo wasn't okay. And they finally put him on the IL, but they may have cost him his career. So, I mean, what is it saying? God. Who's there? Yeah, well, we got 2.70 ERAs in this rotation. And aside from Cole, nobody's really having a great year. And if it wasn't for that slow start, Clark Schmidt would be in that category because he has been really good. But that's it. You got 2 starters. And we know Rodon's coming back from the injury, but he's stunk. He is completely stunk. Nestor is going to take time, and hopefully he is back to being that guy he was last year because we need it. But even then, that's 3. Who are the other 2? If Rodon could turn around, fantastic, because he should be able to. That's why he's getting paid. That's why they paid him. But right now, you have no confidence in him. I had no confidence in him going into that game. I was like, man, I don't know if he's going to give us the length we need. And sure enough, he didn't. Yep. So, I mean, again, this goes back to it. Every single player that Cashman's brought in since 2022, I believe, except for IKF, has hit the IL at some point. I don't know if IKF's been on the IL yet, but every other player has.
I don't think he's been on the IL since they brought him in.
No, Rortvet, Donaldson, Montas, Efros, Trevino. I just said Efros, Bader, Benintendi, every single one of them, Canely, Rodon, and those are the only 2 free agent signings we made. And if you want to lump in some of the minor league guys, Bowers and Calhoun were both on the IL this year. So we're talking about a medical staff that's terrible at their job because nobody noticed that Anthony Rizzo was a different player for 2 months. It's like, right, we talked about this the other day, but immediately after the injury, he completely fell off a cliff. He went from an MVP level hitter to the worst hitter in baseball. And they're like, no, he's fine. Has nothing to do with that. But every other person, everybody else except for the Yankees saw that. Like, we're 3 fans doing a podcast 3 times a week in the mornings. We noticed it. We said it has to be something with that neck injury. There's no way you go from being that good to that bad. Pete, he does great work over there at NYY News. He does a show every single day, calls every game. He noticed it. Hector, Jigga, all of those guys, they noticed it. Talking Yanks, they interview the manager. They noticed it. And what did he say? No, it has nothing to do with that. He's fine.
When you're the manager.
Right. When you're the manager, you can make that. Yeah, that's what he did. Everybody but the organization. So it's this is a medical staff that they misdiagnosed Clint Frazier. Brandon Drury, they didn't know what happened with him. Like, his eyesight's messed up. We'll keep playing you. And I said it the other day, and I'll say it again. The fact that he played 2 games after complaining about fogginess, how you let him play. I know the medical guy, the doctor that Brian Hope talked to, said it probably didn't do anything like in further hurting him in terms of his vision. But the fact that he said his vision was foggy and they said play and they let him play, that's terrible. And I think Li brought it up earlier, like they could potentially ruin the career of a fan favorite, because that's a guy that was an MVP level player. MVP level. He was hitting on the way that Olsen and Freeman are hitting right now. Everyone's like, we could have had them. Rizzo was at that level through the first 2 months. And then he got hit in the neck and he just completely, there it is. Yeah, he just completely plummeted. And they never once said it might have something to do with this injury until 2 months later. They said, oh, we could trace this back to the injury he suffered against San Diego. Hello? We've been telling you that for 2 months. Everybody else, Twitter has been telling you that for 2 months. But according to the Yankees, we're stupid. Yet we know more than your entire front office.
It's extremely dangerous to Rizzo's health.
Exactly. It's not even about his baseball acumen. It's his overall health. You're right, Donald.
Could you imagine that? Like if you got a concussion and you're facing 100 mile-an-hour fastballs on a daily basis, every split second counts. Not just your batting average, but your reaction time. The Yankees put his health at risk. And the medical staff is completely incompetent. It's a disgrace what they've done, and it's almost laughable. I mean, you saw that hit. Rizzo was staggering around. It looked like a quarterback got hit. You know, it looked like he got hit by a linebacker, and Rizzo was staggering around. And the Yankees thought, it's fine. That's good. It'll be fine. Yeah, absolutely an utter incompetence. Everybody should be fired. Brian Cashman should have lost his job just for that alone, the fact that he came out and allowed him to continue to play, despite the fact that he went from one of the best hitters in baseball at the start of the year, batting over 300, to the worst hitter in baseball over that 2-month stretch. And the Yankees didn't think there was anything to that. Like, what is going on in this organization? It doesn't even take a podcast like ourselves or podcasts like NYY News or Talking Yanks or anything like that to point this out. This is straightforward. Open your eyes. But they just don't do it. They're so arrogant and so incompetent. And now they're putting people's careers at risk. They put Rizzo's career at risk. Well, I don't really care what Rizzo says. He'll try and defend the Yankees because the Yankees pay him $30 million. But at the end of the day, this is all on the Yankees. They put him out there. Absolutely disgraceful.
I don't think you're being dark. I think it's just you're being bluntly honest. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Rizzo could have been killed playing with fogginess. Just think of the reaction time, right, Donald? You were talking about how it just takes that 1 millisecond for something to go wrong. Could you imagine if he's got this fogginess and he takes a pitch high and tight, and he actually gets hit? What that could do to him? You're not just talking about wins or losses here. You're talking about a guy's health. Even after the game is played. You think the Yankees, after the concussion with Frazier, and now he was never the same. And they were cautious with Frazier, but not with Rizzo, who's your superstar first baseman. That's the guy that you just keep throwing out there, ignoring it. And I don't want to hear what Boone said, that he felt fine. And like Warren keeps saying, with the gaslighting from this organization, cut the fucking shit out. Right? You're talking about somebody's fucking health. And you just sat there because your arrogance wouldn't let you make the decision to make a change. Right? Bowers is a serviceable first baseman. So is LeMahieu. You could have called up somebody. You could have made a trade, but you waited until after the deadline to even acknowledge that there was a fucking problem. So they're so proud. They have so much pride that they give us nothing to be proud of. That's a fucking problem. That's where it comes down to the philosophy of this whole this organization. They just think that we're the Yankees, our shit don't stink, and nothing we do will blow up in our face. Well, the times are fucking changing. Because everything is blowing up in your face, and it's too late now in the season to make any significant move, to even make a run for anything. What is it now? You're 4.5 games out of the third wild card spot. And the teams that you have to hop over all made significant moves at the deadline to improve their chances. So you could pretty much just kiss this fucking season goodbye at this point, unless you start bringing up the kids and let them give us a spark.
You know what's worse is Seattle sold off pieces.
And
Seattle traded their closer. They almost traded Teoscar Hernandez and Ty France, who were two of their better hitters. They were like, we're going to sell. And they didn't go all the way with their fire sale, but they traded off a couple of pieces. The Astros added a pitcher. The Blue Jays, I think they added some. I can't remember.
They got a couple. They got some bullpen help.
Yeah, they got some bullpen help. The Orioles added. Even Boston added. The Angels went for it. They've been struggling over the last couple of weeks, but every other team made those improvements, and the team that you have to jump right now just to be that team on the outside looking in sold off pieces. So, like, again, we talked about it the other day, and I know Donald wasn't here, but he alluded to that earlier. The front office they didn't know what to do. It was like a seesaw. Like, we should sell. No, we should buy. No, we should sell. And then they kind of middled out and said, let's not do either, and let's just add one bullpen arm and get a guy who's been DFA'd. That was it. And everyone questioned it. Michael Kay questioned it. Michael Kay usually will eventually take the Yankees side, but this year he's been lighting them up as much as he can. I want to give Michael Kay a little credit there because usually he's going to be like towing that company line, but he's ripping into them whenever he can. He ripped apart that trade deadline. Everybody else is like, what are you doing? And the fact that it came out that it was Hal who said, no, don't sell, Cashman wanted to sell, that bothers me. That really does bother me because we've been giving Hal a lot of credit this year. We've been kind of giving him a pass because of what he did to get Judge back. But I don't know. There's so many issues, and I hope that we do see Pereira at some point this year. We know that I think Ramirez just got called to Double-A, so they have high hopes for him at the catcher position. But what does that mean for Austin Wells? Does he get a shot at the Major League roster this year or going into camp next year? Do they give him a chance to win it? I don't know, but next year that's too late. We're still trying to make the playoffs now. You said it. You're in it to win it. You're going for it. Why not? And I know they're waiting for a certain date so they don't have to worry about service time, which is another issue. But I'm hoping they try something different. And I've been saying this now for 2 months. Try something different. Try something different. The fact that we've had to wait this long and we still haven't seen Florial. I know he's on the IL still in AAA. We still don't see Peraza getting consistent at-bats. Pereira has already shown he's too good for AAA, and they won't call him up. And he's actually on the 40-man, which, again, there's an issue right there. We needed an outfielder all season, and they have not called up the two guys that can actually play the outfield. Arrogance is such a good word because they just don't want to admit mistakes. Like, we can't move off from Greg Allen, despite 7 other teams have done it. We can't move on from Billy McKinney, despite 4 other teams have done it. Bowers has been fine. Keep him around. But I'm not going to miss Greg Allen. I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm not going to miss him. I'm not going to miss McKinney if we have to let him go. If it means getting Pereira up here now, do it. And when Florial's healthy, if it means getting him up here, you got to make those moves. They're not that tough decisions that you're like, we're not cutting Aaron Judge here to make room for Everson Pereira. We're talking about Billy McKinney. I mean, Willie Calhoun elected free agency and no one picked him up. And he was actually having a semi-decent year. Like, it's not like the rest of the league is going to be chomping at the bit to get their hands on these players. The Red Sox didn't even use him, and we got him in a trade. That was actually a trade that we made, Greg Allen. Guess what? IL. So he just came back. I forgot to lump him in with that category. Make some of these moves, and maybe the fans will start to believe you're actually serious. But you can't tell me we're in it to win it and stick the same roster that struggled to stay above 500 without their best player and be like, yeah, this team's good enough to win.
Yeah, let's bring that one back up real quick, because just wanted, before we start really signing off, we just want to send our prayers to Hector and his family. We're going through some times right now. But we're gonna miss him on the show this week. But TC, we all looking forward to hearing you and Jigga together. That's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of fun. But Hector's absence will be missed. But like I said, our thoughts to him also.
We love you, Heck. You did an incredible job. You're just an even better guy. So my best to your family, my guy.
Absolutely.
Right. real quick before we do sign off, because the chat's been really on fire today. It really has. And there's one of these. Here it is. And then Cashman comes out at the deadline. We're obviously in it to win it. What? Yep. And this one from Rob went over that. And Li, responding to comments back and forth with Joan. Jake Lamb would have been brought up and give first base to Wells. Give him the rest of 2023 to learn to play first base. Next year, start Wells. I'm not opposed to that. If we fall any further, I just say bring up the kids. Let them get some. Let them get some experience under their belts for next year. Because what else are you going to give us to look forward to? Because if you keep running the same roster out until the very last game, is anybody feeling optimistic that they're going to make any changes? No.
Go back to 2016. Remember, Aaron Judge was terrible in 2016, and people thought he might not make the team in 2017, but he ended up forcing their hand, had a great spring. You're not going to learn anything about Everson Pereira anymore. He's already shown you in such a short amount of time he is good enough to hit AAA pitching. So whether it's September 1st, if that's what you're waiting for, call him up. Austin Wells has looked just fine at AAA. He was already good enough at AA. He's looked just fine. We know Florial's too good for AAA, but we need to find out if he is a quadruple A player or if with an actually extended at-bats, and even if he plays for 1 month, that's still not enough. That's not enough. But you have 4 guys that are in AAA right now. You can even put Chaparro in that category to see what you have, but we're not going to call up 5 different players. But there are so many guys in Scranton right now that should probably be here, whether it's Vasquez on the pitching side, some of the bullpen arms like Sean Boyle. I believe he's in Scranton. He might be in AA, but there are some guys that should be here right now, but most of them are on the offensive side of the ball, and we need offense. We need hitting, and we're not calling – Florial, lefty. Wells, lefty. Pereira is an all-around hitter with speed, can play good outfield. We need that. Why are we not giving these guys a shot? Chaparro could easily be your DH if you want to play Stanton every so often in right field, but we know Judge is going to DH a lot, so I can kind of put him outside of this category. But Wells, Pereira, Florial should all be here right now. They should all be here at some point, whether it's now or September 1st. And Peraza, I forgot about Peraza as well. He's also another guy. Why are we not giving these kids a shot? Because it's not like the players that they would replace are having these outstanding seasons. You can sit DJ LeMahieu every so often, or you play him at first. You can sit Jake Bowers every so often. It's not like he's had a good year, but he's not having an all-star season. McKinney can go. Allen can go. You can move some players around. Cabrera, what are your plans with him? Because you're giving him no shot, sending him up and calling it up and down, up and down, up and down. It's not helping him.
No, Donald, give us your final thoughts on this.
No, it's a no-brainer. You obviously have to call up Pereira. You obviously have to call up Peraza, or even consider calling up Wells. I think Wells should be up too. I think all 3 should be up. There's really no excuse not to. What are we doing right now? We're a mediocre team that's 99 times out of 100 not making the playoffs. So you might as well learn something from what you've got in the minors, because what they should be doing right now, the front office should be planning ahead for 2024. They should be looking at what's working, what's not, and they need to be really honest in terms of their self-reflection about their philosophy, which has failed, and about their way that they are developing prospects, which has failed, and the way that they approach offense, which has failed. And, they need to be honest about all those things. They need to be honest about their coaching decisions and their management, which has failed. So at the end of the day, self-reflection would show them that they need a new manager, new general manager, a new development staff, and a new philosophy. And that's just to start with. And then you'd maybe start to see a better looking organization. But what they need to do is be honest with themselves. Before they're even honest with us, they need to be honest with themselves. right? Whatever our personal opinion is on regarding Aaron Boone's job or Brian Cashman's job, whatever, they need to be honest with themselves, because that is where you will finally get to see the Yankees make progress. Because at the moment they're not honest with themselves, and as long as they continue to delude themselves and continue to gaslight the fan base and the media, then we are not going to get anywhere. Because at the moment, my personal opinion is they're going to use this as an outlier and just say, hey, if Aaron Judge didn't run into that brick of cement and broke his toe, we would be making the playoffs by now. And then they'll use and once you're in there, you're in it to win it, and it's a crapshoot. Blah blah blah. Let's just patent it, parcel it, and send out the same roster in 2024, because that, I think, is what the Yankees want to do. But if they're honest with themselves, this goes so much beyond Aaron Judge. And if they don't see that, if they're not honest with themselves, then nothing will change, and this team will be exactly the same next year, if not worse. So it's time for some self-reflection. Whatever happens the rest of the year, they need to be honest with themselves to start with.
Real quick, Dave, I'm glad to hear your dad's doing better. Hope he stays on a positive track. Also, let's give a little praise for Jason from 161 as well. He's been dealing with some medical problems. But here's my final thought, right? And here's where we've had fun bashing Boone on this channel for 4 years now. This whole situation with Rizzo, I don't think I can ever respect that man again. Because here's a guy that's putting this lineup out, whether he created it or not. He's the manager; it's on him. He sat there for like Li said, 2 months and 7 days, dealing with these symptoms, watching his numbers go down and down and down, and not even that. The fucking balls of Boone to keep putting him in the lineup while this fan base kept booing that guy every time he struck out, every time he made had a bad at bat, the boos, and you just sat there acting like everything was fucking okay. You are Boone. You are a fucking moron. How dare you consider yourself a manager where you're going to sacrifice your players for your fucking ego? And that's how I'm ending this show. Shame on you, Boone. Letting that guy get booed. Get the fuck out of here. Well, we got to get out of here, too, because we are bumping into NYY News. Pete Simonetti, all rise. Hop over. Leave your voicemails. But listen, we've enjoyed everybody in the chat. I want to thank everybody. We'll be back on Wednesday, 10 a.m., same time, probably the same fucking frustrations. But as we always say, hit that like button, hit the share button, hit the sub button, wear your pinstripes of pride, and play hard.